I think it's very important to understand packages first. So many times when you receive a proposal, you'll see, X bundle and bundle name, but the specifics of what's in that bundle won't actually appear on the proposal. So I think the first thing that you have to do is just be very clear that the thing that you asked for is the bundle that ended up on your proposal. And in most cases, the details of that will either be in the terms and conditions, so look to the fine print in the back, or they'll be on the company's website someplace. If you're unable to easily find the inclusions, then what you really need to do is chat with the individual who provided you the proposal. Can you clarify? Is usage included? Is a DID included? Do I get instant messaging with this? Whatever those components that you had discussed, just make sure that you understand exactly what's in that package. And then what I suggest you do is build yourself a spreadsheet, go feature by feature name, and take the proposals that you're comparing and mark off those that you've been able to prove are included in that proposal. It's definitely an area where service providers are playing a little bit of a shell game related to what's included in what package and what isn't included in what package. It's really great to propose the instant messaging, video, conferencing type components of the solution, but oftentimes those are an upsell as opposed to the basic telephony seat. That's one area. Certainly usage is another one of those areas. If it's unlimited, what does unlimited mean? Does it cover all of the types of usage that you're actually going to generate? Is toll-free included, or are you being billed for that inbound? And not that any of these are necessarily negative, but they're absolutely required to understand if you're going to compare this proposal to another one. Another area is the inclusion of hardware. So is the hardware embedded? Is the phone included with a seat, or are you purchasing that separately? So those are a few areas that UC gets upsold, usage you'd have to consider, and then phones, not phones, that type of thing. So there are a few things. I'll start with the more obvious things, and then we'll get to the things that are a little bit more difficult. Obviously the first one is the infrastructure and security to provide the solution. So oftentimes we'll have a partner or we'll have a prospect call us back and say, hey, you guys are 20% higher than the competitor. And the difference in the 20% is simply access or Cloud Connect, which is the connectivity to get to the cloud in a quality format. It might be the PoE switches that we put in to be able to provide power to the phones. Those types of scenarios where, frankly, a lot of our competitors don't provide those services or don't provide it on the first quote, right? So it's just about seats and not about seats in the servicing infrastructure. You will not get a proposal from Evolve IP where we've not addressed and had the conversation with you about how you're getting to the cloud, to our cloud, in a quality format that will deliver a service level consistent with the expectations of your end users. So just be sure that if you're comparing an Evolve IP proposal to someone else's, that they're addressing connectivity, that they're addressing a gateway to ensure proxying and appropriate support, that they're including switches if they're required. So that's element number one, making sure the infrastructure is in that quote. Another area that has become interesting is I had mentioned earlier about the inclusion of phones. One really easy way to make the price look lower would be to not include phones in the price and to sell them, put them in that NRR bucket at the bottom of the proposal. People have a tendency to not look at that. They're just looking at that monthly bottom line. Now, we will support either fashion. If the customer wants them included, which is most of our customers do in the monthly fee, or they want to purchase them, which they can certainly do. That's really the customer's propensity to buy, what's going to work best for them from a budget perspective. But it's key to understand that when you're buying equipment, look at the terms and conditions of the agreement. What responsibility is the vendor taking over the equipment that you've purchased from them? In most cases, what we've seen is that the vendor is providing the phones, but the customer is taking complete title, the customer is taking complete warranty responsibility, or that warranty is the warranty of the vendor that the phones were manufactured by. Which means that if something breaks in the middle of the day and the service provider deems it to be a hardware problem, it's now the customer's issue to call Polycom or some other vendor directly on their own, negotiate and deal with their own RMA on faulty equipment, replace it on their own. So just consider what's actually included in that service. You could save some money by buying phones, and if you choose to do that, that's fine. But make sure that you understand title and support, which frankly, if we sell it to you, the support, the RMA support, and brokering the vendor is still included with the Evolve IP service. Make sure that you understand that portion. Unfortunately, one of the things that we're seeing now is a little bit of gamesmanship around pricing that frankly feels a bit like the middle of the 90s when local phone service opened up. And there were all these kind of fees that appeared, the Pixie fee, the recovery fee, the, you name it, fee. And it made it really easy for people to kind of move their local from incumbent carriers to a local exchange carrier, and then there was this big chunk at the end of the bill. It wasn't something, frankly, that we have seen a lot of as the hosted PBX and the unified communications as a service industries have grown up, but now it's highly prevalent. If you just take, and I'm not going to specify anybody by name, but if you look even just right below the signature line on many of these proposals, you'll see upwards of, on some $3.50, on others over $8 in fees before taxes, mind you, that are added on to a per seat basis. You'll see things like E911 fee, where companies like Evolve IP, that's E911's required. It's included in the price of the seat. E911 recovery fee. You'll see regulatory recovery fees. You'll see all of this, and then the taxes are added on beyond that. So there's really two keys to that story. One is the number really 18 or is it 28? Think about those pieces. And then which components are actually going to be taxed? So ask your vendor what their effective tax rate is. In many cases, the vendor is not taxing jurisdictionally, which means that a phone call needs to be rated and taxes need to be paid on it, even if the usage is unlimited and included in the account. So what many competitors will do is just take their worst effective tax rate and bill it across the board against that. And then it's a job of how much money did they recover on their own. So really look out for those taxes and fees. We've seen, again, $3, $4, all the way up to $8 in fees before taxes. And then ask what that effective tax rate is going to be at the end of the day. How are they taxing on the included phone calls? The FCC requires each phone call to be rated logically and then taxed according to what that rating would look like. So find out how you're being taxed. Great opportunity for vendors to represent a significantly lower number than what you're ultimately going to end up paying. Oftentimes, these contracts are so voluminous that the answer you get from your salesperson may be very different than what's in black and white. And frankly, that could just be a source of misunderstanding. I think the keys to look at there are A, is there an SLA? And if there is an SLA, what's the actual expected service level? Is it 3 nines, 4 nines, 5 nines? If there is an SLA, what are the things that are not included in the SLA? So you'll see statements like anything that's not related to our services. Well, if the story is don't come in over managed network from the vendor, bring that on your own, then that pretty much means that just about any quality problem is not going to be the fault of the vendor unless they're just flat down. So SLA is certainly one of those things that you'd want to consider and look at. Second one is, as I had mentioned before, understand what the inclusions in each of those SKUs or product bundles are. You will rarely, if ever, see the details of those products on the quote itself. Third thing, absolutely read every single word of the terms and conditions. It will not only include things like SLA, but it'll include statements around the title of equipment that's delivered. It'll include things like the ability to downgrade or upgrade inside the contract. We hear a lot about, hey, the cloud's great because you can consume when you need it. Unfortunately, many of these agreements don't have any provision for downgrade. So that's something that you can certainly look at. Take a look at when billing starts. Does billing start when you sign the contract? Or does billing start when you actually install the service? I'll tell you that most agreements that you'll look at, billing will start immediately, even if it takes you 60 days to get the contract installed. So certainly understand the inclusions, read the contract end to end, and really work to get yourself into a comparison. Build up that spreadsheet, feature by feature, item by item, mark off those concerns, and make sure that you're educated about what you're buying.